Saying, okay, so all right. So Missouri ghost town for sale. And let's uh, let's look at what you can buy. All you need is was that $295,000. You get this little
Uh,
church here or the school. You get this building, this car. Oh, J.F. Hogle must be a general store of some kind. Here you are inside. Yes, look,
wow.
you even get the interiors fixed, finished up for you. The jail. You can buy this town. You can buy this town. Whoa, complete with farm equipment. Whoa, and it's in Warsaw, Missouri, which is 225 miles from St. Louis, and that's where Warsaw is.
Hmm.
So we're going to talk about ghost towns in Missouri, plus we're going to talk about some ghost towns out west, because that's what comes to your mind when you talk about ghost towns. But we're
Mhm.
going to start with the definition of a ghost town, an abandoned village, town, or city, one which usually contains visible remains, which means for most of these towns that I'm going to talk about, you can go and see something. There's something that is left of them. Now, why does a town become a ghost town? Some economic activity, which is the mainstay of the town, has failed. And then there's natural disasters in Missouri. Tornadoes and floods are causes of towns being abandoned. And then there are human caused disasters. And uh, one, of, one of the best known human caused disasters was caused by somebody who spread um, something on the streets of a town, and the town was emptied out, it was abandoned. Okay, but there are no ghosts except we'll talk about one town with ghosts, and but they are called ghost towns. Here we are in a little ghost town. So, what types of ghost towns do we have? The town can be abandoned, nobody's living there. There are some structures you can see, but there's no person around. But sometimes there's a small population. People continue to live even while the buildings around them rot. Yes. And then there are historic places that people are restoring, that people are making an effort to preserve the town, even though it is no longer a viable town. And then we have just the mark that used to be on the map, and there's nothing to see. So there's all types of towns. And then sometimes these towns have been built as attractions, or sometimes they're owned by the government, especially the government makes them into state parks, and they are groomed and maintained. All kinds of ghost towns here. Okay, there's a little ghost town. So we're going to start with Times Beach, because this is the one probably best known to people in St. Louis, and it's 15 miles away. And Times Beach was started by a newspaper, the St. Louis Times. And if you took out a subscription, you got a site at Times Beach on the Merrimack. All you had to do was take out a subscription, and you got a, a place. And there was a vacation destination. The Depression hit, and the residents could not afford to pave the roads. Well, became a problem. The roads weren't paved, but the city was running. Here's the city police for Times Beach. It was a viable city. The roads were dusty, and they hired this guy, Russell Bliss, to spray oil on the roads. Now, he used oil from a company that produced Agent Orange for the Vietnam War. And um, as you know, Agent Orange is nasty, totally nasty. And he sprayed it on the roads, and the town is on the Merrimack and subject to flooding. So here's Times Beach flooded, which means the Agent Orange is released. This is 1982, and residents were getting headaches, nosebleeds, diarrhea. Birds fell out of trees, horses died, and the federal government came in and they bought up the city. This was kind of something new for the federal government to come to the rescue of a town that was undergoing problems of this sort. Okay, so they bought up the city. Here is the last mayor of Times Beach, and here is the sign saying, "Stay in your car." Dioxin contamination. That was part of the Agent Orange stuff. And keep your windows closed. Drive slowly, and the town just had to be wiped out. And they got all the residents leave, and they tore down all the houses and the churches and the schools. And this hill that you see is where those houses are. They burned all the houses. And this is the hill as the houses and the churches, all buried in there. All the ashes are buried in there. And that's the mayor again, walking on this hill. But now it's Route 66 State Park. And you can see it's a pleasant area. The roads are paved, not dirt anymore. And you can find out more about Times Beach if you go to the Route 66 State Park. Route 66 State Park was technically part of Times Beach, and it was, you can see it was like an inn, a dining destination. You drive out here to get away from the city and to spend a pleasant time outside of the city. That is now the Route 66 State Park, and it is a museum. The museum will have various Route 66 displays. So we have the Times Beach has been totally wiped out. There are no people living there. Now, if you ask teenagers here in Valley Park, where I live, they have a theory about this. It's very obvious to them. The town had a problem, the dioxin problem. The government moved everybody out, destroyed all their houses, made the place safe, but wouldn't let the people back. And the teenagers tell me that's because at Times Beach, there's a secret underground government bunker. I haven't found it, but that's what they say. Not too far is Allenton. That's almost across the street from Times Beach. So this town was demolished because there was going to be a big shopping mall, which didn't happen. So you look here, Allenton is across 44 from Six Flags. And if you look at Allenton, you'll see basically no houses left. No houses left there. And it was a nice town with a post office, schoolhouse, gas station, everything. And it got demolished and sits empty. Here's the sign for the church in Allentown. And in 2004, that's when they took over the town by eminent domain. Here's some roads. Here's a stone building, which still stands because stone buildings are not easy to tear down. Here's an old stop sign from those days. So that's Allenton out near Six Flags. For Robertson, we're going to go up to the north part of St. Louis County, 16 miles away. And here you can see it's got a train station. Robertson's the real deal. It was a town, and it was on a highway, and they had motels, yes, and all kinds of motels. It was actually a Route 66 highway, a bypass highway for Route 66. Went through Robertson, and it was an African-American town, and it was wiped out because the airport was going to expand. Lambert was going to expand. Lambert never expanded, but they did wipe out the town.
Wow.
They never used it. They never used it. But the word name Robertson still exists because there's a Robertson Fire District centered in the ghost town, was centered in the ghost town, but now it's in a couple other towns nearby, and you'll see the Robertson Fire Protection. Now, Kinloch is not a ghost town well, some people say it is a ghost town, but it's definitely draining people, and there are very few people left. And Kinloch has a place in history, a place in history. It's up again up north, North County, and this is where Theodore Roosevelt flew in an airplane. They had an airport there called Kinloch Field, and Teddy Roosevelt flew in an airplane, the first president to fly in an airplane. He was not a president at the time, he was an ex-president, but that was 1910. And here he is in this plane with a guy named Hoxie, and they took off from Kinloch Field. Now, it's becoming a ghost town. Here's somebody's comment. It feels like it's a scene from Mad Max, that movie. And vagrants burning fires, bombed out buildings, potholes, discarded semi-trailers. So let's take a little look at the city of Kinloch, which we are going to say is becoming a ghost town. An abandoned city. It grew throughout the 20th century, but their peak population was 6,000 people. You can see, look at the background, there are those empty houses. Here we are looking again. The city of St. Louis started purchasing properties in town because of airport expansion and noise abatement. And what happened is, went down to just a couple hundred residents, from 6,000 down to 200, and it's probably fewer today. And dumping is a big problem. It's not a nice place to live. But my concern with Kinloch becoming a ghost town is what's going to happen to the basketball courts. And I'm interested in the basketball courts because they are special. And luckily, they are county owned. They are not city owned. And Architectural Digest has said the Kinloch basketball courts are one of the 10 best designed basketball courts in the world. In the world. So here's what they used to look like in Kinloch. And William LaChance did a design of basketball courts. Here is the design, kids holding it, and here's some people pouring the paint, and this is what they look like. And they are deliberately made like a stage. They're like a stage set. So the basketball players are part of the mural and they're playing on a stage, and it just changes the nature of things. And then look at the backboard. Wow. Yes, even that is special. And there's William LaChance. So basketball courts will be there even though Kinloch is shrinking. National City, Illinois, that's 20 miles from St. Louis on the other side of the river. And this used to be a hot, bustling town. Thousands of people worked in this town, and it doesn't exist anymore. The state of Illinois has actually taken it off the map. And it's because animal slaughter and meat processing used to be centralized in National City. And then the meat was shipped out because there are all these railroads that converge in St. Louis, and the meat was shipped out. But over time, the meatpacking process moved to more local. So in 1996, they closed the stockyards. All the residents had to leave because the stockyards owned the town. And this is what's left. This is what's left. And in 1997, the population was 0. So bye-bye. We're going to Nona, Missouri. This time we're 39 miles, and we're going out to west a bit on the Katy Trail. And 1 mile west of Augusta is a former town, and the only thing that's left is a general store. And this guy, Michael Bauermeister, has turned that store into a woodworking shop. And here he is in his woodworking shop, which is inside the general store, the only building left in Nona, Missouri. And this is what he likes to carve, these strange cylindrical type things, but that's his favorite thing. But he does other types of would work as well. Now, here's your question. What is the Missouri state bird? Anyone want to guess?
Bluebird? Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes. Eastern bluebird.
A few things I remember from grade school.
Okay. What's the Missouri state song?
Missouri Waltz.
There we go. All right.
Number 2 I remember from grade school.
And how about what is the Missouri state soil?
Beats the heck out of me.
Lee raises his hand and says, what's the state soil, Lee?
Menfro.
Menfro soil.
Really? Wow.
Okay. This soil, do I have it right? Did I spell this right? Menfro?
Yes, that's right.
That's
yes.
right. Okay. Menfro, Missouri, you haven't heard of because it's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. It's down here. It's in Perry County. And as you can see, it tends to get flooded. Yes. And founded in 1902 because of the World's Fair. They built the railroad to connect this town to St. Louis so people could go to the World's Fair. And we do have somebody in this group who is in the World's Fair Society. Right. So here we have the railroad station. And of course, your railroad station is a sign of life. If you lose your railroad station, many times your town will lose its own life. But there are two parts of Menfro. The bottoms, which is on this creek, which is close to the Mississippi River, and a town that's on top of the bluffs. Right. And here's the old sawmill, the Perry County album, and Menfro. Now, I'm quoting somebody who grew up in Menfro. This is actually a prime timer. Said that flooding was a natural occurrence for the community. I'm quoting this guy. As a child, he frequently went into the area near the creek to help families prepare for the flooding, moving belongings to the second floor, removing doors and windows to allow water to flow through once the town flooded. And here you see the town is down below near the water, and there are houses up there on the bluffs. And this town, when the flood came, families would move up to the higher ground, and then the whole community would cut together and help each other clean and repair after the event to return to normal life. Here is what it was like in the area that did get flooded. So the flood of 1943, Menfro rebuilt. 73, Menfro rebuilt. 93, too much, Menfro did not recover. All right, so I quoted somebody. Does anybody know who I quoted? Anybody know who I quoted about Menfro? I quoted Lee. I quoted Lee.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yes, yes. He was the one that described this. And that's
So
what
I grew up down there, but I was born in St. Louis. Pepper. Sorry, my dog. My parents had been farmers, and my dad had been devastated several times by flooding. They lost a child between me and my sister, and so they were taking no chances, and they had the birth at a hospital in St. Louis, Deaconess Hospital. I looked it up. The price of a birth in 1945 was $29.50. If you wanted anesthesia, another $5. When I was born, the doctor came out to my father and said, I'll try to save your wife. The umbilical cord's wrapped around his neck. We're going to have to do a cesarean. So I was born cesarean, but they had not prepared for that cost. So the doctor negotiated a price for my birth with my father after my birth, and my birth was paid for half the $29.50 with one calf and 50 bushels of black walnuts.
Wow.
We had a farm down there, and the doctor was kind enough to negotiate those rates. And so my birth was paid for. And all my relatives for years have walked up to me and at family reunions and said, "We help pick up walnuts for you."
Wow.
Oh.
Gosh. Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
great story. Great story. Okay, but anyway, Menpro is not around anymore. It is a ghost town. Going to go to Arlington, Missouri. And Arlington was a bustling town. It was a big town. It was a resort town. It was outside Fort Leonard Wood, and it was on the Gasconade River. It had a bridge across the river that connected the two sides of Arlington. And then Route 66 was rerouted because of the fort. Route 66 was, the route was changed. The Arlington Bridge was demolished, and you couldn't get across the river in Arlington. So the two sides started to fade away. They lost passenger train service, and then now Arlington's in two pieces, both of them basically ghosts. Arlington on the east side of the river, this building here is still empty. There are people in that house there. There are few people living there. Here's the tracks. The train station's gone, and here's the old church, I believe. Now go to the other side of the river. Anyone recognize this woman?
That May West?
That's Mae West.
Wow.
Yeah, Mae
Wow.
West. And she was known to visit the Stony Dell Resort. Apparently, this resort attracted celebrities. I don't think she performed there because her humor, as you know, is a bit on the raucous side and probably wouldn't go over big. But I think she was just a visitor, just having fun there. And this is what Stony Dell looked like to attract people, to get them to stop, get free artisan water here. And now this swimming pool was the big attraction. And it was, at the time, one of the largest swimming pools in existence.
Wow. Wow.
Now that's gone. Here is food and gift shop. That's still here. These little cabins are still there. There's some stone arches. Here's a house in the woods that are gone. So that is the end of that side of Arlington. Old Greenville. All right, now we're 120 miles away from St. Louis, and you can walk the streets of a ghost town in Old Greenville. They have set up a path, and there's a map for you to walk through Old Greenville, which was evacuated because of flooding. It was moved. The town was moved, and the St. Francis River would flood, and then they built a dam, and that was time to move to a new town, and the old Greenville got abandoned. And who built the dam? The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So who built Memory Lane for you to walk through the ghost town? Also the Army Corps of Engineers. And it was 1938 where all this happened. This is what Greenville, old Greenville looks like now. That's it, just a sidewalk there. And then here's a walking path. It's an U.S. Army Corps of Engineers sign put up for you. And it's called the Memory Lane Trail. And you just see things like this as you go along the trail to Old Greenville. And an interesting little sign honoring a resident of Old Greenville, Alice J. Curtis Moyer Wing, who was a suffragist. Okay, and she lived in the Old Greenville. Anybody know why we don't call her a suffragette?
I was about to ask why you didn't. Yeah.
A suffragette believes in violence.
Oh.
A suffragist believes in education. And we didn't really have suffragettes. Britain had lots of suffragettes, but we had suffragists. Now, Bloodland. Okay, that should give you a little creepy note here, the name of the town. This is the town that got wiped out. It's 126 miles away. It was a thriving town. Here's the Bank of Bloodland. Bloodland was founded by a man whose name was
Blood.
Mr. Blood. Mr. Blood, yes. And had a post office that operated until 1941. What's happening in the world in 1941?
World War II.
World War II. World War II. And Bloodland is right next to Fort Leonard Wood. So they destroyed the town to make room for Fort Leonard Wood. The only thing they preserved was the church bell. It's in Waynesville, Missouri. If you want to go see it, you can see it there. But here's their historic cemetery. That's there. And notice it says it's a violation of state and federal law to destroy or remove any gravestone. Violation of state and federal law. Okay, that's an interesting note there because some graveyards have been plagued by loss of gravestones. And here is where the cider ghosts are found. Cider ghosts, again, do not operate individually. They're always in a crowd, they're riotous, and they target one person at a time. And they make him drink something. What do they make him drink?
Cider.
Cider. Yes, in this case, hard cider. At 1943, the guard at the firing range at Fort Leonard Wood was dragged into a room by a crowd of angry cider ghosts, and he was forced to drink hard cider until he passed out. Forced. Yes, that was 1943. In 1944, Randall Ellsworth was found drunk on the firing range. A ghost riot grabbed him and force-fed him cider through a straw.
Doug, that has happened to me so many times.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Right here in Oakville, it happens all the time.
All the time.
Terrible.
With a straw. They come at you with a straw. Okay, so in the 1970s, guards have seen the cider ghost riot, and it's believed that a curse was placed on this area because this is where the firing range is now. A curse was placed on the area by former residents of Bloodland. We, of course, can't verify that. Yeakley, Missouri. Yeakley is interesting in that the people in Yeakley Missouri, came from Yeakley, Tennessee. It's Greene County, Tennessee. It's Greene County, Missouri, and Yeakley in both places. And what's special about Yeakley, back in Tennessee, they published the first abolitionist newspaper in the country. And what you have to remember about Tennessee is that Eastern Tennessee did not have any slaves because they were a mountainous, hilly area, and did not support the Confederacy. In Greene County, Missouri, these people who came here from Tennessee were known to house escaped slaves. And all that's left of Yeakley is the church and the cemetery. And these are, cemeteries are very often the signs of a former town. Okay, and here is the church, and this church gets visited because it's on Route 66, and people who are traveling Route 66 will stop and look at the Yeakley Church. Plano. Down here, there are only 2 buildings left from this Route 66 town. And what happened is sometimes Route 66 got rerouted, but all of Route 66 got replaced by Interstate 44. So these towns which relied on Route 66 traffic for business, many of them just did not survive. So here we are, and the county calls it a ghost town right on this sign. And here is the former general store, at Plano. And this is a close-up of the type of rock that was used to build the walls there. This is a former Tidal station, which means a former gas station. How do you know this was a gas station? By this type of door, um, because that is where cars would go in and get serviced. And this is a Tidal station, and you can visit those in Plano. And this is it. That's all that's left of this once thriving town. The two buildings, catty corner from each other. Phoenix, Missouri. Now, there's a lot to see there in Phoenix. We're still in Greene County, and this was the Phoenix Quarry. 1888, marble and limestone mining town. They helped build the Missouri Capitol building, and their stone was used to build the New York Stock Exchange in 1903. That's the current New York Stock Exchange building, built in 1903. From stone, from Phoenix, Missouri. And here you can see some of the works are still around. And it says keep out. But obviously some photographer didn't keep out. So it's a company town. The mining company owned the store, the school, all the properties. They owned their home. They owned the homes within Phoenix. And usually in this case, if the company owns the homes, they will rent them to workers for the company. But it's a one industry town owned by the company. If the company suffers, the town suffers. So here we have Phoenix Marble Company, 1922. Building is there. Well, how could this town have disappeared? A number of things would have happened. The best stone got removed, so it was not. The Great Depression came along. People weren't building anymore. There were labor disputes. They lost their railroad in 1943, and again, losing a railroad is often the death of a town. And they need their equipment was made of metal, and metal was needed during World War II. So here you have the scene. This is Phoenix, Missouri now. This is all empty. There is nobody living there. Nearby, the Leaky Roof Railroad Corridor. I couldn't help but add this picture here. The Kansas City, Clinton, and Springfield Railway was called the Leaky Roof Railway. I do not know why, but here is actually this is a furnace there, and that is near Phoenix. Paris Springs Junction, Missouri. Oh, to be in Paris. Okay, this is here. And there was a gas station there, because this was on Route 66, Paris Springs. And there was a gas station which was called the Gay Perito.
Oh.
Do not know why, but that was the name. And then Route 66 got rerouted, the town died, and the gas station burned in 1955. But someone named Gary Turner bought the property and recreated the gas station. You saw what it looked like back in the days of Route 66. This is what it looks like now.
Wow.
It's basically a tourist attraction, and sells you stuff, and has been recreated by Gary and his wife Lena, and they're just so happy to provide the service for people. Spencer, Missouri, similar story. It's out here, and this station was built and then abandoned. But to build it, this guy in 1925 walked 100 miles with $400 in cash in his pocket to buy the land to set up the town of Spencer. He created the town of Spencer, and it was located across the road from a Route 66 labor camp. So he knew that he was going to have customers initially because of the labor camp. And then when Route 66 was set up and finished, he would have all the people traveling Route 66. And so he set up this town and it thrived, but Route 66 got rerouted, sort of straightened out, we'll say. Spencer died. And now we have this couple who bought the town of Spencer, and they wanted to restore the buildings back to how they were because they are stone buildings. And they just have all these little things, all these places, the inside and the outside have been set up in Spencer. And you can see that it's a brick building, so they had an easy time. They didn't have to worry about the wood and that sort of stuff. So here is a little visit there. Now, if these people who bought it are present, they may have the buildings open and you can hear from them about the history of the town. But even if they are there are no public restrooms in Spencer. So keep that in mind if you decide to go visit. No public restroom. Now there's Spencer for you to visit. And there used to be cabins and stuff, which they didn't bother to restore. Possum Trot, Missouri. How could we have lost a town named Possum Trot? And that's down there. Abandoned around 1970. Around 1970. So all we have is basically a street sign, Possum Trot Road. And we do have an old church, and we do have some stone foundations out in Possum Trot. Now, there's an urban legend, only an urban legend, but it gets repeated. Kansas City. Back in the days, of course, these towns, to become an official town, you wanted to incorporate, and you had to apply to the Postal Service and name your town so your post office would have a name. So the urban legend is that they had a meeting in the area trying to decide on the name of this town that became Kansas City. And this guy named Squire Bowers suggested that the town be named Possum Trot instead of Kansas City. Just think of the fun that would be if that metropolis were called Possum Trot. Instead of the Kansas City Chiefs, you'd have the Possum Trot Chiefs. Yes, yes. But that just was an urban legend. Branson. Okay. Branson, you don't think about ghost town, but there is a Missouri ghost town right on the edge of Branson. This is a newspaper headline. Sheriff warns people to stop coming to Missouri ghost town. It's actually on Fox 2 News. He's warning people to stop coming to Missouri ghost town. The ghost town is part of Branson, called Indian Ridge. It was built for $1.6 billion as a resort community. Just look at this. Look at this. Building after building, all deserted, all deserted. And what's happened is that it sat there untouched, Silver Dollar City, because it was an eyesore. Silver Dollar City bought it in 2022, and it's demolishing Indian Ridge. But as you can see, it's not easy to demolish because there are very solid buildings there. Melva, Missouri. Poor Melva, poor Melva. Here we go. Here are some people, an old photo from Melva, Missouri. It was a thriving village, but it was wiped out by a tornado. Killed 11 people, and Melva is now just ruins. So here's your natural disaster. And here you can see some ruins from Melva. And this chimney is a fireplace, and there 2 women took refuge in this fireplace during that tornado, and they survived the tornado. So this chimney still stands. Far West Missouri. Let's see. Um, Wars. What wars have been fought in Missouri? Anyone know of a war that has been fought in Missouri? How about the Civil War?
Civil War, yeah.
Civil War. Mhm. How about the Mormon War?
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mormon War. Okay.
PTSL.
This town, far west, was founded by Mormons, grew to be 4,000 people, and now it's just one empty church. What happened is the during the Mormon War, things got dicey, and the governor sent out militiamen to quash this Mormon rebellion. And actually, Joseph Smith, the leader of the Mormons, surrendered, and they were put on trial for treason. They were basically forced to sign over their property in Far West to pay for those troops that wiped out that wiped them out. And then the Mormons had to leave the state, and they went to Nauvoo, Illinois. They went east,
Geez, wow.
Illinois, to Illinois. And here is the only remaining building, the church. And here is some plaques or monuments there in Far West. And here is a sign. Joseph Smith surrendered to the Missouri militia. And this the bring closure to the Far West city. Oh, what a wonderful name for a town, Jollification. Yes, that's out here, built as a mill, but they called it a mill, but it was really
Still?
a distillery.
Ah,
A
okay.
distillery. Yes, yes. The building still stands. There's the waterfall. And the town grew up around the mill, but the town was burned and the mill was spared. Now, could the town have been burned by the bald knobbers? The bald knobbers were this gang, Ozark gang, and they wore these masks and attacked whatever. So not quite sure what whether they wiped out the town of Jollification, but we do know they did create a show out at Branson. You can go see the Bald Knobbers show. All right. So the railroad bypassed the town. 1870. Your town's not going to last. It's on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's a park for you to visit. So because people are visiting, they've moved these buildings into the area. These are not original to Jollification. West Point, Missouri, bye-bye. This is out here. In 1863, that part of Missouri was getting dicey. There were Union troops out there, but there were a lot of Confederate raids. And the Union commander decided that he would force all residents of 3 counties to move into sanctuary cities. Gave them basically 2 weeks' notice to leave your farm and your house and move into a stronghold town. 2 weeks, that's it. No matter what your crops were, no matter whether your horses were ill, you had to move to a stronghold city. And here are people pleading to not have to leave their homes. But they did have to leave their homes, and the Union troops torched 3 counties in southwest Missouri. They torched an area bigger than Delaware. Bigger than Delaware. Some of these towns people came back to after the war was over. But so West Point, no one went back to the town of West Point. And to remind you of the burning of this area of Missouri, this is a monument that this state has put up, the Burnt District Monument. So we've looked at ghost towns in Missouri. We're going to look at ghost towns out west. What's the difference? Well, in Missouri, we just have ruins, remnants, and memories, but out in the west, they've got an entire town. You look at an entire town. And our ghost towns just sit there, but out west, they groom and maintain their towns for visitors because there's an entire town. And we're going to go to a couple of these. out in Montana. Virginia City and National City were right near each other, and they were thriving mining towns. And in Virginia City, they had a special restaurant called the St. Louis Restaurant. That's because St. Louis was so glamorous to those people in Montana, you bet. And now they're open air museums. The state of Montana owns much of it. Welcome to Virginia City, resisting change since 1863. And here, obviously set up for you to visit. So it's a tourist attraction. That's Virginia City. This is Nevada City, hotel and cabins, and this train, more tourist things to do. And then you can drink beer. And that actually at one time was the state capital of Montana. And here's the governor's cabin. Yes, not the governor's mansion, the governor's cabin. And they have a theater troupe, the Virginia City Players. They do ghost tours for the tourists. And it's just a big deal. Now we go to Oregon and Shaniko. Shaniko is Oregon's favorite ghost town. At least that's what the people in Shaniko say. And it's such a big deal that the Secretary of State on the state website has a page for ghost towns. Yes, and they're saying that individuals who are going to maintain Shaniko, and they want visitors to come during the tourist season. And this used to be the wool capital of the world when Shaniko was Shaniko. $5 million worth of wool in a single day. Single day. That $5 million today would be $174 million worth of wool sold in one day in Shaniko, Oregon. And this is what the place looked like. It was jam-packed and thriving. But another railroad came along and drained off business. No passenger service to Shaniko, and there's now just 12 people living in Shaniko. And here is the hotel, which you can see is nicely preserved, but there's not much else there, with abandoned cars and so forth. And a little house, yes. Kennecott, Alaska. Whoa. This is now in a national park. And you can see it here. This is the red roofs along by the mountains here. A little closer look at Kennecott, the red buildings. Kennecott was a mining town. And what you see over there on the hill is a copper ore processing plant. They'd start the ore, the raw ore up at top, and go through various stages. And they just move the ore and the ingots and whatever they're doing down step by step with the help of gravity. So they save themselves a headache trying to move from one step of processing to another step of processing. And to remind you what the town was like, because nobody's living there now, just a couple of buildings are falling apart, just more mining stuff. Here's a lumber yard just sitting there. Now, Kennecott was a company town, all based on copper. They even have heard of the Kennecott Copper Company, but when the copper runs out or Kennecott stops dealing with copper, your town just disappears. But company town, they had these miners, and the company paid the miners, and these lonely miner guys were looking for companionship. So very close to Kennecott is another town in Alaska called McCarthy, and this is where the miners would go to get entertained. Do I need to explain to you what the miners were looking for in the way of entertainment? In any event, McCarthy is pretty much empty now, and you can visit Kennecott and McCarthy both at the same time, basically. Knott's Berry Farm. I think you may have heard of this place. It's out in California. started in the 1930s. And this guy's wife, Walter Knott's wife, made incredible fried chicken. Incredible. So popular that people in the 30s, this is the Depression, they drive out to Knott's Berry Farm and wait in line for 3 hours just to eat fried chicken. Well, there are these people for 3 hours. Walter Knott decided to entertain the waiting guests. So he built a what to entertain them?
Theme park?
Park. Yeah, theme park.
Theme park, wasn't it?
But 1930s, it wasn't a theme
Oh.
park. What's the topic of this talk?
Ghost Town.
He built a ghost town.
Oh, of
He built
course.
a ghost town because his parents, his grandparents, had come to California in a covered wagon. He built an old Western ghost town right
Oh.
here. So the Knott's Berry Farm ghost town. And it's built today, has these actors doing things and entertaining people. And he bought bits and pieces of old buildings, but he needed a model. He needed to know what a ghost town looked like. And he went to Calico, California, not too far away. And that was his model for the ghost town he built for the people waiting to eat fried chicken and have gooseberry pies. So here we have the Calico Saloon, because this is modeled after the town of Calico, California, which was a ghost town. So Walter Knott built this fake ghost town in honor of this real ghost town. And then he decided that he was going to actually buy Calico. He bought Calico, and he has restored Calico to its former glory. So he's got the fake ghost town at Knott's Berry Farm, and then he's got Calico out there in where it exists. And it is a full town. Largest silver mining camp in California, but what would happen? The price of silver dropped and you couldn't make a profit. You couldn't make a profit mining silver. So this town became deserted. Became deserted because there was no work. There was no work. And now this has all been restored by Walter Knott. Well, let's think a little bit about towns and Irish Dement.
And you know the sun's setting fast, and just like they say, nothing good ever lasts. Well, go on now and kiss it goodbye, but hold on to your lover, 'cause your heart's bound to die. Go on now and say goodbye to our town, to our town. Can't you see the sun setting down on our town, on our town? Good night.
Okay, so we've seen a cavalcade of Missouri. We're going to see a cavalcade of Missouri ghost towns, ones that I haven't talked about, but people have talked about what they think about ghost towns in Missouri, and I have found 254
Wow.
in Missouri. 254. I'll send you guys a list.
It's a lot.
A list. And again, there are all types of ghost towns: abandoned, semi-abandoned, historic, barren, commercial, government. So let's look at some of the towns that I didn't talk about. Almartha, founded by a married couple. What was the name of the husband?
Al?
What was the name of the wife?
Martha.
Martha. Thank you. Yes. Here's Avila, a ghost town. Bacon, Missouri. Post office closed in 1907. No more bacon. Here's Burr Oak. Can you see those rocks there in the woods? That's an old homestead there. Cookeville. Here's Cookeville. When it existed, this was wiped out by Fort Leonard Wood.
Oh,
Here's Corning, Missouri. Let me just get something right here. Okay. Okay. Then here's Dillard, Missouri, another ghost town. And, you know, these are ghost towns where there are things for you to see. Franklin, Garber, that's stone buildings, of course, not easy to knock down, and they survive. Georgia City, the only thing left of this city is the cemetery. You see that in many places. Glencoe, gone. But what's not gone at Glencoe? Glencoe, Missouri? Anyone know what's still there? The train. The train.
Wow.
Yes, that's along the river there. Hamburg, here's a stairway to who knows what. Right now it's a stairway to nothing. Hooker, ghost town, and they it's on Route 66, and that again, people will stop there to just look at what's around. It's right next to Fort Leonard Wood.
Oh, of course.
Springs, again, not nobody living there. St. Wenceslaus Cemetery in Carlin. St. Wenceslaus, to give you a hint that this town was settled by people from Bohemia. People from Bohemia. All that's left is the cemetery, and quite possibly buried in the cemetery is this child whose funeral we see here in the Catholic Church. The church doesn't exist anymore. Then we go Lock Springs. That's not booming anymore. Monarch Springs, that's their train station, what's left of their train station. They have a caboose, but no town. Montevallo had a battle there in the Civil War, but you can see it's empty. Moselle, that town is empty as well. Red Oak, we did see before. It's been revived as a tourist attraction. Sligo, no more Sligo, no more people. St. Vrain, that's up in the North City area. And the only thing left is one little dot there. Wakenda, you can see why Wakenda isn't inhabited anymore. A little too wet, right? And then Windyville, Missouri, the ghost town where everything's haunted. So what makes this town haunted? And the answer is that in this town of Windyville, you could hear screams coming from the old cannery building. You can see a horseback rider at Lone Rock Cemetery. You can hear heavy footsteps in abandoned buildings. You'll see a woman looking for a lost baby and hear children's laughter coming from another cemetery in Windyville. Another ghost town, Zanoni. Don't ask me how somebody came up with a town named Zanoni in Missouri, but there is a town and it's a ghost town. Right. So ghost towns in Missouri and beyond. And I'm Doug Schneider. And coming up for the prime timers, earthquakes in St. Louis and beyond. This is coming up in October, the end of October, the 28th. As you know, we had the largest earthquake in the history of the United States. This earthquake rattled windows in Montreal, Quebec. Our earthquake was so strong, it rattled windows in Montreal, Quebec. The president in the White House felt it. The church bells in Boston rang, all because of our earthquake. And we'll talk about past, present, and future earthquakes in St. Louis. Again, that'll be a free Zoom talk. And that is the end of this Zoom talk here. I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you, thank you. Let me see if I can, I want to figure out how to stop recording. Recording here, come on.